Street Fighter 6 has learned lessons from the content-bare release of its predecessor and offers a variety of significant features and modes right out of the gate. It's a robust fighting game that is of premier quality, a return to form for the franchise that welcomes both new fighters and seasoned pros. Street Fighter 6 splits its content into 3 hubs: Fighting Ground, which most closely emulates the classic Street Fighter experience; Battle Hub, where players can congregate and challenge each other to compete in tournaments; and World Tour, which is a sprawling story mode with an open world and RPG hooks. Each gameplay format centers on the classic Street Fighter style of 2D fighting gameplay, and that excellent core experience is what drives everything. Mechanically, Street Fighter 6 doesn't fall far from previous games in the series. You have multiple normal attacks, special attacks, super arts, and movement techniques specifically designed for each of the roster's 18 characters. What distinguishes Street Fighter 6 from previous iterations are the core universal mechanics shared by all characters. These universal mechanics are also where much of Street Fighter 6's gameplay depth is. The drive system is Street Fighter 6's new universal battle mechanic, and I'm amazed at how much it adds despite being simple to grasp. By pressing the 2 medium attack buttons, I can parry an attack using drive parry, or with drive rush I can immediately dash forward out of it for a burst of speed that can catch opponents off guard or introduce new combo sequences. Functionally, players that are experienced with Street Fighter 4's focused attack dash cancel or Guilty Gear's Roman cancels will feel right at home. By pressing both heavy attacks, I can initiate a drive impact that can stagger an opponent and leave them open, ensuring that overly defensive players can be opened up. If an opponent is backed into a corner, landing this will make them bounce off the wall, adding a variety of other strategic considerations and opportunities. Drive reversals, meanwhile, allow me to block an attack and counter with a move that, while not very damaging, will help escape tricky spots. And finally, overdrive lets me power up special attacks like the EX system of old. These aren't unlimited, however, as each move uses up part of the drive gauge, just below the health bar, and a fighter can burn out, which slows their movement speed and makes certain offensive and defensive moves inaccessible for a period. The strategic implications of this system cannot be overstated, as these new tools do wonders for the overall fighting. Drive impact in particular can swing the tide of a battle in an instant, as catching an unsuspecting opponent with one will allow you to put a hurting on them. Keeping these tools in front of your mind is key to victory, and luckily it's not an overwhelming amount to recall. One of the major criticisms leveled at Street Fighter V was the rigidity of battles, with some going so far as to call it turn-based. However, these new mechanics make Street Fighter 6 feel more fluid. No matter how simple Street Fighter 6 can seem, novice players are going to feel some trepidation when stepping into the ring for the first time. The game is ready for you though, as Capcom has implemented a new modern control scheme that makes controlling fighters more like Super Smash Bros. Than a traditional Street Fighter. This gives new players a foundation from which to learn, but that growth does have a ceiling. If you decide to transition to the classic control scheme, players will need to learn the manual input controls that have been used since Street Fighter 2. The easiest place to learn Street Fighter 6, either in modern or classic styles, is in Fighting Ground, which is a traditional Street Fighter experience. This is where you'll find familiar modes like arcade mode, online ranked and casual matches, and offline versus modes. This section's shining feature, however, is its practice area, which houses some of the best in-game tutorials the series has ever had. Practice mode has the classic freeform training mode fans expect, but it also holds full tutorials for the game's core systems, as well as character guides and combo trials for all 18 characters on the roster. These character guides are a deep dive into what makes each fighter tick, as it explains not only their special moves, but also the best situations in which to use them. Fighting Ground also lets you tinker with in-game commentators, one of the more ballyhooed features of Street Fighter 6.
Oh no, whiffs the drive attack.
While hearing Tasty Steve and WWE's Zelina Vega in an official Street Fighter game is super cool, the excitement those commentators generate during an actual tournament isn't ever captured here. Those experiences are fueled by genuine off-the-cuff reactions to the action on the screen and in the arena, while those same voices sound like they're reading situations from a script here, which of course is exactly what they are doing.
throws to get around their defense.
If you're looking for a less traditional Street Fighter experience than what's offered in Fighting Ground, it's time to take a world tour. This is a massive story mode with multiple chapters that unfolds across the entire world. The main hub is Metro City of Final Fight fame, and it's stuffed with things to do and references for long-time Capcom fighting fans to find. The rest of the mode is broken up into smaller locations based on stages from the core game. These are one-off locales you'll visit sparingly, so they're not as big as Metro City, but they all still have a charm to them. The story being told in World Tour doesn't live up to the standards set by fighting games like Tekken 7 and Mortal Kombat 11. However, everything happening around the story makes up for it in a big way. World Tour is essentially a Street Fighter RPG, where the fighting mechanics serve as the battle system, and it is very silly fun. Walking through the streets of Metro City, I can challenge virtually anyone I want to a fight. Be they a food truck attendant, an old lady going to the store, or a young troublemaker getting up to no good. With every victory, my avatar gains experience and levels up both their core stats and the fighting styles I'm using at the time. This challenge anyone mechanic is also technically impressive, as it really does let players challenge anyone. The game seamlessly goes from challenging a passerby into a fight and then returning to the free roam without loading. The stage is whatever we were standing in front of at that moment. There is a noticeable dip in frame rate when fighting in World Tour, and the visual quality of the stages and random fighters is nowhere near as good looking as Ryu fighting Ken on a carefully crafted stage. But I didn't focus on them much, as I was too busy enjoying the silliness of fighting every Metro City denizen that passed me by, or using money to buy a hat that somehow improves my kicking power. Leveling up fighting styles is the other major customization option and growth path. Your avatar's moveset is in your hands, and as you progress through the story of World Tour, you meet the 18 masters of the world, aka the playable roster of Street Fighter characters. After earning their respect through mission completion or even a one-on-one fight, your avatar will be enrolled as a student and given access to that character's moveset. You'll pick a core moveset for normals, but then you can pick and choose which special moves you want your character to use. At one point, my avatar used DJ's Rolling Sobat, Blanca's Blanca Ball, Chun-Li's Spinning Bird Kick, and Ken's Shoryuken. That versatility and ability to create your own fighter down to the moveset is something new for the franchise and a core part of what makes World Tour fun. Using a fight stick to control the avatar in this mode is rough. The camera controls do not translate to a controller with only one stick, so getting around the city can be cumbersome. The game does offer a solution, though it's not an elegant one. You can activate your fight stick as player 1 and your controller as player 2, and then switch between the two depending on if you're moving around Metro City or fighting someone. While this does mean extra space is needed for two controllers at once, I appreciate the convenience of easily switching every time I want to use it. Your avatar also takes center stage in the Battle Hub, which is the final section of Street Fighter 6's experience. This is basically a middle ground between World Tour and Fighting Ground, where players bring their avatars into a massive dome lined with arcade cabinets. You can sit down at a cabinet and wait for a challenger while training, or you can join a queue of players already seated, the digital equivalent of putting a quarter down on a machine. Street Fighter 6 netcode sings no matter who I'm fighting or, incredibly, which server I'm logged into. I made sure to log into the North America, South America and Asia servers during my review time, and nearly every match I played in all three felt like my opponent was sitting in the room next to me. That's not to say it's perfect, as personal internet connections are also a major factor in performance, but the advent of rollback netcode has been a major boon to the entire fighting game genre, and Street Fighter 6 is the latest beneficiary. I had a couple of matches in the North America region that did have some netcode issues, but my online play experience as a whole has been overwhelmingly positive. Fighting games in the modern age live on through their extra content, and Street Fighter 6 is no exception. Capcom has not only confirmed the first 4 characters coming via downloadable content, but much like Street Fighter 5, the game will feature its own economy complete with multiple currencies. Drive tickets are earned in-game, and fighter coins can be earned in-game or purchased separately. As well as this, there's a Battle Pass, which will offer avatar gear, emotes, and other perks in both a free and premium track. Given how strong the base game is, having more content and being able to play the game in different ways is an exciting prospect. I can't get enough of Street Fighter 6. It's been my last thought when I go to bed and my first thought when I wake up in the morning. It has a beautifully constructed fighting system, but also offers modes that take the game very seriously and, in other cases, not seriously at all. There are some small issues with performance in World Tour, but none of those are enough to derail the overall package. With the releases of new Tekken and Mortal Kombat games, it very much feels like we're in a new golden era for the fighting game genre. Thankfully, Street Fighter 6 steps into the arena looking good and fighting fit.